Welcome to Baby Loss Talk. I am your host, Janelle Adams, a fellow baby loss mom who created the show to help remove the stigma, shame, and loneliness of losing a pregnancy or infant by sharing real stories, advice, and resources. Before we do get into your story, Christine, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, I am 31 years old. I've been married for about 4 years now. We just celebrated our 4-year anniversary in December. It's an amazing, amazing husband of mine. Thank you. We've been together for 9 years, but married 4. I'm originally from New Jersey, but right after high school, I was like, I'm out, family. I want to go as far away as possible. I ended up down in Miami and been in Miami for almost 13 years per se. Just recently we relocated to Orlando, and that is where a lot of this new path that I'm in has started. But other than that, it's just my husband and I, our angel baby. We have 2 dogs, an Australian Shepherd and a mixed Yorkie per se. No one knows what he is. He's just a little terrier. So yeah, it's just, that's it for now. We truly just like enjoy spending time together, especially now with what has happened within the past 6 months. I feel like we truly like enjoy each other's company and just cherish every single moment that we have with each other. So yeah, a lot more to discover about myself, a lot more to discover being married, being an angel mom. So it's interesting to see where life will take me now.
Okay. Yeah. So I already feel myself getting emotional. I don't know. Okay. So, I can tell though you have such an amazing spirit about you. I can tell you're like super bubbly and just
I get that all the time. I'm very reserved. I'm quiet and shy. Growing up, I was so shy, a crybaby. Still am a crybaby. But growing up was pretty hard for me per se. I was born with sickle cell anemia. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it attacks basically a lot of our red blood cells and produces lack of oxygen and so forth and so forth. So growing up, I've been hospitalized numerous times. Like a hospital was like my second home. So it was tough. Blood transfusions, pneumonias. I had a hip replacement done. Wow. So it's been like a constant struggle.
Yeah.
I would say at the end of the day, I always try to look at the positive thing in life. I was given this, I don't want to say illness or disease, but I was given this challenge because God knew that I can handle it. Like I'm the only one in my entire family who has it. So it's one of those, it's been tough. Growing up, I was always like, why me in a hospital? But now I know why, so I don't like to say that sickle cell defines me, like I define it. So again, with having that illness and then losing our son, it's just been like a lot of confusion per se. Sickle cell was not the main factor as to why I lost Aiden, but it still makes you question a lot.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
So now that we have talked about Aiden a little bit, can you share with us a little bit about that pregnancy? Was this your first pregnancy?
Yes, this was our first pregnancy. And again, having sickle cell was one of those where I needed to make sure that I was doing the right things medically and physically.
Okay. So you had to pre-plan this pregnancy with your medical team?
Yes. It was a lot of, several years ago, I was told like, oh, you can never have a child because you could die type of deal. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we just make sure my husband and I, like, it wasn't like, okay, boom, do what you need to do and you're pregnant. Like we truly had to take the right steps. I had to get off a certain chemo medication that I'm on, because if I'm on that medication, then it causes several fetal birth defects. But there weren't any tests out there. So it was one of those that we had to make sure we were taking the right precautions. So I got off my medication and instantly was like in and out the hospital. So we were like, you know what, let's just give this a break. So it was 2 years that we were like, I was on and off my medication because I would be in a hospital, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to risk my life for trying to get pregnant. And he's very supportive. He's like, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Like, if you want to go a different route, then that's fine. But I think deep down inside me, it's like, no, I know I'm destined. I'm meant to be a mom. Like, no one can tell me I can't take that. They can't have a baby. Like, it's my own body. Like, I want to make that decision. So for 2 years, we just sat, we were trying and nothing happened. So then when we finally decided to move to Orlando, we were like, you know what, let's just give it a break. Let's just enjoy Orlando. It's a new place, a new environment. And as soon as we move up here, boom, got pregnant. And it was like, okay, what do we do now? So it was a perfect pregnancy. I went to the doctors and they were like, okay, well, since you have sickle cell, you're considered very high risk, which we knew that already. So we went to doctors, everything was good, baby was good, everything was like perfect. Like, there was nothing wrong. Like, I did have 1 or 2 hospital admissions because of the sickle cell.
Right.
It was nothing where, the baby was at harm. Like, he was perfectly fine. Heartbeat was great. He kept moving around. Like, it was normal. What happened then was that I went in for a regular OBGYN checkup, and I remember the day specifically. It was August 16th. I went in and I woke up that morning. I was like, something's not right. Like, you just feel it. Like,
right. And how far along were you in your pregnancy at this point?
At that point, I was 5.5 months. 5.5, 6 months. It's just one of those where, like, I felt like something, I just felt it in my gut. And I was like, I'm just going to bypass it. And it was also the one time that my husband did not come with me to the doctors. Like, he came with me to every appointment and he was fine. But the one time I was like, no, don't worry, go ahead. Because he had some work things to do. I was like, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
And he was like, okay, no worries. Just call me as soon as you're done. And I remember I'm like getting ready and I'm like, my belly just seems really small. Like, it doesn't look like I was growing. Like, I just looked like I ate a lot. But everyone kept saying, like, well, you're tiny. Like, I'm literally like 5 feet, 100 pounds. Like, I'm tiny. So it was like, oh, you're little. Like, you're going to have a little baby. It's okay. Like, not a big deal. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Go into the doctor and she's checking me and I'm like, is everything okay? She's like, silent. And I'm like, okay, well, that's how I know something's not right. She's like, I'll just wait for the doctor to come in and talk to you. So the doctor came in. He was like, well, we have good news and bad news. I'm like, okay, just lay it out. He's like, well, the good news is that we're going to go ahead and admit you right now. And I'm like, that's not good news. He's like, the bad news is that the baby's not growing. He's basically showing that he's a week and a half behind. By this time, I was technically 24 weeks. So he was already measuring about 22, 23 and a half weeks. So there was like, that's not good. And we'll have to admit you. Now, chances are he's not going to make it. Like, they just flat out.
So they told you that.
Like, well, why? Yeah. And I was like, no.
I got to the hospital.
Before I was even admitted, before anything, they were just like, worst case scenario, he's not going to make it because of his gestational age. And you should by now he was weighing less. He was less than a pound while he was still in me. Already like 2 weeks behind, a week to 2 weeks behind schedule. So it was like, well, we're going to do right now is we're going to admit you and you're going to be bedridden at the hospital. And I'm like, oh my God. So they were like, well, you'll probably be bedridden up until you're about 36, 37 weeks. And once you're already at full term, we'll go ahead and do an emergency C-section. Well, I already knew I was going to have a C-section because of my hip replacement and the sickle cell. So I knew that was going to be a lot for me to do like a natural birth. So we already knew from the beginning that it was going to be a C-section. Now the matter of time it was like when it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, I'll get admitted. We were making plans to stay in the hospital because I was only 24 weeks at that time. So it's like, I know I'll be in the hospital for about 10 to 12 weeks. So, I'm calling people. I call my mom. Like, I don't have a lot of family out here. I just have my biological father and an aunt and uncle and cousins. So my mom lives down in Miami. My mother-in-law and father-in-law, all other family members on his side all live out of state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just calling everyone, like, hey, FYI, I'm being admitted. Chances are, like, there's a 70% chance he might not make it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like mayhem.
Well, what was going through your mind at the time? Like, did you accept that diagnosis, or were you positive and just leaving it in God's hands? Like, what were you going through mentally?
I just was like in a haze. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, okay, like, I accepted, like, all right, I knew I was going to be high risk. I was ready to take on those type of challenges. I didn't think that I was going to be in a hospital laid out for 10 to 12 weeks, like I knew that I needed to take it. So like my job was really good. Like they, worked with my schedule. So it was one of those where this just wasn't on like my list of things that I needed to worry about at that time.
Right.
So it was just like, I had faith at that time, but it definitely was tested. I'm not gonna lie, it definitely was tested. But it was one of those, I just kept praying like, oh gosh, just make sure I make it to at least my third trimester. Let me make it to my third. Let me just make it. Okay, not to third trimester. Let me just make it to 30 weeks. And I kept dwindling it down every day because I'm like, like I don't know what to do anymore.
Right.
So I got admitted, and we were there I was there literally a week before all the craziness happened. And I was on the baby monitor because they wanted to make sure that one of the reasons that they thought that he wasn't growing is because they thought I had an infection in the placenta. So they were doing lots of tests, but nothing. There was no infection. Like there was nothing wrong inside of me for them to hint as to why he stopped growing.
Mm-hmm.
So this day, I don't have a black and white answer as to why that happened. I think that's what kills me inside, is not knowing on a piece of paper, okay, it was this, or it was because you ate this, or you didn't drink enough fluids. Like I just want something tangible.
You're in the hospital and you're laying there for a week.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what are you going through for that whole week?
I was just like a hot mess. Like I try to stay positive, because it's like I'm in a hospital. Like there's really nothing I can do. Like even if I tried to go get up and use the restroom, I had to let them know, like, hey, I'm getting off my monitor now, but I have to stick it through because this is my next home for the next few weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally exactly 1 week later when I turned 25 weeks. The day, and I remember it's a beautiful day outside, and his heart rate kept dropping. It would drop, then shoot right back up. So it would drop to like the 50s, 60s, and shoot right back up to like 170. And the nurses kept coming in. I kept asking her, I was like, why does he keep doing that? Like, why is his heart rate keep dropping? She's like, oh, it could be that some babies play with their umbilical cord, and like they're just moving around and playing around. Okay, nothing to worry about. She's like, well, we're just gonna check it out and see, but if it continues to happen, we might have to go into an emergency C-section. And I'm like, okay. So I remember like just try to stay as still as possible so like he wouldn't move, or like whatever he's doing, like his heart rate doesn't drop. And I remember I'm like, oh my God, like I cannot like move my feet, I can't move my toe, like I can't move my hands because like I don't want anything bad to happen. I went ahead and I remember I moved on over to just get a little bit more comfortable because I was reading a book, and like 10 people came rushing into the room. They're like, oh, we gotta go. I'm like, where are we going? They're like, no, we're going into an emergency right now. And I'm like, well, why? They're like, because his heart rate keeps dropping. And like, I'm at that point, like they're stripping me naked. They're, like, and again, the one time that I told my husband, hey, go ahead and go to a work function, he was not in the room. He was like maybe an hour and a half away. While I called him and told him, like, hey, they're taking me into the emergency room right now. And like, he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, they're taking me. His heart rate keeps dropping. You need to hurry up and get here. And so while they're like stripping me naked and taking everything off and plugging me and doing all, I just kept praying, and I kept praying and praying. Like, I just want him to be okay. Like, I want him to be okay. And I remember, like, while they were putting me in anesthesia, I just asked the anesthesiologist, I was like, can you just pray? Like, pray for me. And lo and behold, like, I don't even know if she did, because within like 2 seconds, I was already gone. But I was like, just pray, just please make sure he's okay. Like, whatever you need to do, just make sure he's okay. So I was out of surgery, and all I remember, because it was still hazy, all I remember is that they rolled me into the NICU, and I saw him, I touched him, and then they took me back upstairs so I can, go ahead and recuperate. But he came out at August 23rd at 25 weeks at 7:24 p.m. And he was literally 1 pound, 11 inches. And I remember the doctors telling me, if he does not make it to 1 pound, there's nothing we can do for him, because the type of tubes that they have will not fit his throat or go down his throat area. So it was one of those where, again, while I was laid up in the hospital, it's like, oh my God, I need to make sure he makes a pound. Like, I need to eat as much as possible, because if he doesn't make a pound, they literally told me that if he's not a pound, there's nothing we can do. We'll just put him on you, and that's all. So my main focus again at that time was like, I need to eat. So he finally made 1 pound, 11 inches, and they rolled him into the NICU. So he actually was fighting for 5 days. He was the toughest little being I've ever witnessed in my entire life. And it was hard because, like, every other day, like, one day he was doing good, the next day he's not doing so well. He's doing good, he's not doing so well.
So you were still in the hospital for those 5 days, right?
Yes. I got discharged out of the hospital on a Friday, and he passed on Sunday. So, they were constantly doing x-rays to making sure that since of course he was a Micro-Preemie because he was born before the 28 weeks, they make sure that they were just running so many tests. He had so many machines on him, and it was a beautiful sight to see your child, but it wasn't pretty to know that, that they're in so much pain, or if he was in pain, if he could speak, like, there's nothing that we can communicate with.
Yeah. And I can totally relate to that, because my daughter was slightly younger than your son. She was born at 23 weeks, 5 days. And she was hooked up to all these machines.
Yeah.
It was just so small. And I was just like, I remember asking the doctor, I'm like, is she in pain? Like,
Yeah.
And, they were like, what they said was she has all her senses, she can feel everything. So they didn't want to say, yes, she can feel everything. But as a mom, I knew she could. And that made me, I'm sure you understand, like, just really sad, because they're so tiny. And
it's so tiny. Like, I was just like, oh my God, that little thing was inside of me. And it's like, to me, he seems big, 11 inches.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really big, but it was one of those where I was like, I saw him, I was like, oh my God, he's so tiny. He's so tiny. And everyone, like, you know, my mom drove up. My mother-in-law drove down from Atlanta. So it's like we have family driving in from all over. And the first thing that they said when they saw him, oh my gosh, he's so tiny. And it's like, I know, but he's going to make it, right? He's going to make it. And they're like, yeah, he's going to make it. You know, I've heard stories of Micro-Preemies being born at 25 weeks, 24 weeks, and they've made it. So it's like, oh, I know my baby's going to make it because I'm a fighter. My husband's a fighter. Like, he's going to make it. Mm-hmm. We have people praying for us all over. And it was like, you know, he's going to make it. He got this. He's going to make it. And that Sunday, I remember I was already home and I was like, I just want to go to the hospital because, again, I wanted to stay at the hospital. I wanted to stay in the NICU. And they're like, no, you need to go home. You need to take care of yourself because he doesn't want you. We don't want you admitted again, mm-hmm. especially because of stress and your sickle cell and things like that. So I was like, okay, I'll go home, whatever. So we went home and I just had another feeling like, you know, something's not right. And as soon as I got that feeling, I got a call from the doctor on call. And again, this wasn't even his main doctor. His main doctor and his main nurses were off that day. So these were just, you know, other doctors doing their rounds and things like that. And all I just heard her say was respiratory failure. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. Like, she's like, just get to the hospital as soon as possible. So we get to the hospital, and again, she's saying respiratory failure. And I'm looking at my husband. I'm like, what is she saying? And she just laid it out like, he's dying. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you mean to tell me he's not going to make it? She's like, no, he's not making it. He had a rough night simply because of, you know, when you're, I guess the newborn, the last thing that develops on them is their lungs.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So his lung was already, I think his left lung was just not making it. They had all these top of the notch technology machines on him, but just, I felt like he just gave up, which is okay because I know he fought a good fight. She just kept saying like his lungs are just not working as fast as how he should be. He was receiving oxygen, but he wasn't releasing the CO2. So she was like, basically what's going to happen is that since he has all that oxygen inside of him, the first thing that's going to go are his lungs, and he's going to be brain damaged and so forth and so forth. And he's just going to go. So I'm like, okay. So she was like, the only thing that we can do right now is we can take him off the machines and you can kangaroo style him. Mm-hmm. So they told him, you know, on your chest and until he takes his last breath, or you can take off, or, you know, you could take off the machines and he can, you know, take his last breath in the incubator. And I'm like, why would I do that? Like, no, just give me my son. And I just want to make sure that the first and last noise he heard was my heartbeat. So we were holding him until he passed away. And it's hard feeling like that coldness, like, you know, holding your son and all these dreams and aspirations and plans all just gone. It was tough, but I would say, you know, while we were making those tough phone calls, mm-hmm. Just to like our immediate family members, we had lots and lots of support. You know, my mom my mom drove up within like 2 hours from Miami. You know, my mother-in-law was here, my biological father, my aunt, uncle, cousins, they were all there to witness while we were holding Aiden and while he was gone, and they came to the room and they spent time with us. Before Aiden passed, we had one of the hospital chaplains just go ahead and baptize him, even though I know he was pure and he was whole.
I did the same thing. I also had my daughter baptized, and we still have the holy water that they used. I still have it, and I keep it next to her urn.
Same here.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things I was like, it was sad because, like, you think about like baptizing, and we had godparents and for Aiden and, my best friend, and it's just sad that, they weren't there for something like that. But it's not easy, and I get it all the time, like, oh, you're so strong, I couldn't do what you do. It's like, yeah, but I wouldn't wish this on anyone, not even my worst enemy. Like, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. This is nothing that parents, or especially a mother, should have to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like, everything, I'm a planner, so everything had to be like ABC, like in order. And when it didn't happen the way I had expected it, it was just like everything was gone out the window. Like, it's so hard I was getting I was getting the RSVP back. Mm-hmm. RSVP backs from the baby shower the day that he was passing. So how hard was that to know that people were like so excited, like, yes, we're there, we're going. I can't wait for you guys. Like, I'm so happy for baby Aiden, and he's gone. So, I mean, again, people don't know that, but it was just one of the hardest things, and I'm still dealing with it now.
Of course. I mean, at the time that we're recording this, you're only 5 months.
Yeah.
Loss, which is really recent, and just the fact that you have the courage to, share this with us and talk about it, I commend you so much, because I know it's hard. It's
hard.
And you're in the beginning part of the grieving process. So
yeah.
After he does pass away, did you guys still keep him for a little bit, or?
Yeah, we kept him for a few hours. I kind of wanted to stay like with him the whole like time, but it was to the point where, like, my mom, my mother-in-law, they were like, you just go home, like, you need rest, like, you just had surgery like literally 4 days ago, like, you need time for yourself, like, go home. Go take care of all the arrangements and things like that. So I went home, and it was like literally like I felt like I was having a outer body experience. Like, I was here, but not here, so I'm like taking a shower, and I'm just like I don't know, like, is this real? Am I dreaming? Like, am I still in a hospital? Like, where am I?
Yes, I know that feeling. Oh my gosh.
I don't understand. Like, someone pinch me. Please tell me, like, I'm having a bad nightmare. And it wasn't until the next morning that I woke up and I realized, like, oh my gosh, like, this is real. Like, he's gone. Like, he passed away. And I was still like in a blur, in a haze. Like, I was like, I don't understand. Where am I? Like, I was like, where am I? Like, that's all I kept saying. Like, where am I? Like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Was your husband back with you at this point?
Yes. As soon as I told him that they were taking me to surgery, I think he was like down in Altamont Springs area. So he drove all the way back. He made it 2 minutes before Aiden was born. So he just made it, like, at the nick of time. So he got to see him, first. We weren't able to hold him at all because of all the wires and things like that. The only time that we actually held him was when he was passing. But during that whole time, like, my husband had been by my side 24/7. I think it was one of those, like, he was trying to be strong for me, and I was pretending to be strong for him.
Right.
But yeah, the only time, again, that I tell you that he was not by my side is when I was having the surgery. And then one time he didn't come with me to the doctor. So I was like, it's all your fault. But no, he's been my rock. If it wasn't for him, I don't know where I would be, honestly. If it wasn't for
I
significant.
feel the same way about my husband. There's no way that I would still be functioning, breathing, walking, eating, anything if it wasn't for my husband's support. So I totally relate to you in that way. And so, Aiden unfortunately passes away. Did you guys have a funeral or?
And it's so crazy because like his service was on Labor Day weekend, so it was hard for family to come up and things like that. A lot of our family and friends are down in Miami. So again, we've only been in the Orlando area by that time, maybe 7-8 months. But we didn't know a lot of people. We don't have a lot of family or friends up here. But the few friends that we have, they actually drove up from Miami the same day and then drove back down. So, things like that truly showed me that we have a great friendship with these people. Like there's some people drove down from Atlanta. So it was one of those where they really cared for Aiden. And I think that's what makes me feel, I don't know, some type of ways, knowing that even though Aiden people never met him or they didn't get to see him or touch him, but he was loved no matter what. Like I got support like indescribable, but we'll talk more about that support later on. But we had a funeral service for him, and it was a celebration of life. It wasn't, like I said, a lot of people, but it was enough for my husband and I. It was enough for us. It was hard, and it was one of those where I'm like, that's not him. That's not him. Like they had a little baby casket. They had him in there, and I kept telling my husband, I was like, that's not Aiden. Like, that's not Aiden. Like, he just looked so old. And it was because of all of the bruising that he had. And we had an autopsy done, and I know nothing's going to come out of the autopsy because he was a Micro-Preemie. But I was like, I just still want records.
Yeah, you said something earlier that totally resonated with me. That it's very hard when you don't have that tangible, like, this is what happened. And I totally relate to you in that way because to this day, I don't know what happened. I have no clue. And so it's just one of those things where, I don't know, like, you just have to kind of like lean into your faith at that point because that's all you have. Because otherwise, if you try to figure it out, you just drive yourself crazy because there's literally there's nothing anyone can tell you. We did an autopsy as well, but like you said, with a Micro-Preemie, it's very hard because their organs and everything are so small. Right. It's very hard to get back,
my husband told me, he was like, I get what you're saying where you want to know what happened, but he was like, what happens if you do know? Like, if you do have something black and white, then you're still going to beat yourself up because this is what caused it. And I was like, well, I understand. I get, like, he always played like devil's advocate with me, and I love that. And it was like, even if it was the sickle cell that caused the prematurity, like, if it was that sickle cell, then I would have known, okay, it was that, on to the next. He was like, well, even if it was a sickle cell, you're still going to beat yourself up because you have sickle cell. And there's nothing you can do to stop that. Like, there's no cure for it. So it's like, you're still going to be in a lose-lose situation.
Either way, even if you have an answer, it's not going to bring them back. And that's what hurts. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not really so much what happened. Your brain always wants a logical answer.
Yes.
But
and there's no logical answer.
There is no logical answer. And even if we do get it, it's your heart is going to be feeling something else.
Yes, exactly. So, like, I've asked the doctor, I asked his main nurse, I've asked, when I went to my 2-week follow-up appointment, like, what happened? Like, what happened? What caused it? And every answer I got was, I don't know. It just happens. And
Same here.
And I'm like, what do you mean it just happens? And I know like a woman's body is transforming and changing while it's pregnant, and you know, sometimes it's nature. Things happen. But it was just like, I just want something black and white. I want something black and white to tell me that it was the cause of it. And I did have one nurse. She told me, you know, sometimes the body is funny. Like, you know, even if you have a cold or cough, your body is going to think that the baby is some type of bacteria that it needs to kill. And light bulb, I was like, oh my gosh, I had a cough. I had a cold 2 weeks ago. She was like, that. I mean, this is just what I'm saying, but there's nothing tangible saying that is the cause of why things happen. So I kept like, oh my gosh, now it's my fault. It's my fault because I had a cold. It's my fault, you know? And it's like, and I kept repeating that to myself. And then while he was passing, and the nurse is like, I have all of them saying, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I'm like, it is my fault. It is my fault. Like, I failed him. Until this day, I feel like that. Like, I failed him because I was supposed to protect him, and it couldn't.
I know, but you didn't fail him.
I know,
and I understand.
Like the brain and the heart, like
it's a constant battle between your brain and your heart. And as a mom, you know, we are trained just like instinctively, like protect the baby, like this is your job. Exactly. And you know, blame is definitely one of the things that you're going to go through. And I wish I could take that away from you right now, but you know, unfortunately, it's part of the process.
Right.
But I will say to you that one day, somehow, whether it's through prayer or just, you know, something's going to happen where you're going to be able to release that blame, because it's not you, you know. Like they said, sometimes these things just happen, and that's very hard to accept. It's so hard to accept because, you know, like you said, and I'm tearing up because so much of what you're saying was me a few years ago. I, you know, even sometimes to this day, like sometimes I'll ask my husband, like, do you think I did something wrong? Even though I technically know I didn't. And I've come so far in my grieving, but again, your brain sometimes is like just still trying to figure it out.
Right.
But, you know, eventually, and maybe not today, but eventually you're going to be able to release that blame, and, you know, because it's not your fault.
Rely or get back into my faith. Like, I had faith, but it wasn't, and sometimes I feel like it was a punishment. Like, you know, maybe God was like, well, you wasn't too much into believing in me and things like that, so I had to take Aiden. Like, I think of things like that. You know,
and that's normal, but it's not true. It's normal, but remember, it's not true.
Yes, I know. I know it's not true, but it's one of those where it's like, you know, now I think positively. Like, yes, it's the worst pain in my life, and I'm gonna feel like this for the rest of my life because he was our firstborn. He was my miracle baby. But I like to think that God needed him more than me. And, you know, when my time comes, hopefully not anytime soon, Aiden will be waiting for me with open arms. And he's going to let me know everything that God and Jesus has taught him that I couldn't physically teach him here on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to surpass anything and everything in regards to that teaching, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like that, like, you know, like he's protecting me now instead of the roles being reversed. Like, he's protecting me, he's guiding me, and he's leading me into the final destination of where I am going to be meeting him.
Yeah.
And that's, I had to like switch my mindset because I was in a very, very dark place.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about committing suicide, and it's one of those where I had to snap back real quick, because once you go down those thoughts, there's no coming back.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, this is such this experience taught me so much about your mind. Like, where it can really go. And this is what really got me into mindset work, because I felt my mind going this way and I was going that way.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's when I really had to learn, like, you know, positivity affirmations, you know, just like bombarding myself with positivity, because I never understand why people are suicidal. Like, it's easy to judge a person and be like, oh, they're selfish or yada yada yada, but you know, when you get to this place of despair and these thoughts start crawling in, like you said, if you don't nip that in the bud quick,
yes, it's like
you go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You go down a rabbit hole.
I was like, I need to do something to get myself out of it, because I can't leave my husband behind.
That was my thing too. I was like, my husband will not survive losing his daughter and his wife.
You know, and I didn't want to do that to him. He lost his twin brother. So I was like, I don't want him to, you know, having lost his twin brother, his son, and now his wife. Yeah. I was like, I can't put that on him. I can't do that to my nieces who look up to me, who those are like my little girls. Like, I can't do that to them.
Yeah, I always see those beautiful pictures of you guys on your
my little mush. They're in the butt, but you know, and I had to think like that. I was like, you know, and I think what truly got me out of that rabbit hole was like, if I do something to myself, if I harm myself, I'm not gonna be with Aiden. I'm gonna be in some limbo land.
Another place, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't do that. Like, I need to meet with him. I need to be with him. I need to hold him in my arm. But that's how I kept thinking, like, why live in this earth if I don't have the only thing I ever wanted with me? Why, like, what does it matter? Who cares? What if I just jump off the balcony? No one's gonna care. But it's like, you know what? I can't do that, because in the end of the day, I'm not gonna be with him.
So have you done like therapy or like?
Yes.
What are you doing to help yourself to stay positive?
I still have a counselor who comes to my house. So I meet with her. That's been helping me. But what's really helping me is support groups. And I met a girl there who lost her son just like us, I believe at 22 weeks. And just talking to her, like, the only way that you actually know what someone is going through is talking to someone who's
been there.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I have a great support system. I have great friends and family, but I can't talk to them about how I'm feeling, because once we hang up the phone, they're tucking their kids in at night, you know?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I actually mentioned in a previous episode that talking to other baby loss moms, I feel actually helped me more than therapy, because I didn't feel so alone, and I didn't feel like such
ashamed.
Ashamed. I didn't feel like a freak of nature. It was like, okay, someone else gets me, you know. Even to this day, like, you know, now you and I are talking and our stories are, you know, like parallel to each other. Like, I'm just kind of like, you know, so I'm not alone. Because even, you know, and this is the thing about losing a child, it's that the grieving doesn't necessarily end. You just learn how to deal with it better and better as time goes on. Because, you know, you're 5 months into your grief. I'm about 5.5 years into my grief. But on a certain day, it feels like it happened 5 minutes ago. You know what I mean? And thankfully, through therapy and other things, I've been able to learn tools to help me cope better. So those days don't happen frequently like it did in the beginning. But, you know, therapy, support groups, those are all super duper important. Is there anything else that you do on your own? Like, maybe do you journal or?
Yeah, I thought about like blogging, but I'm like, I don't have time to be doing that right now.
It's very therapeutic. I can't even, that's how I got through, because, well, I was actually a blogger prior to this happening to me. And so even when I got pregnant, I shared that on a blog, and I used to write letters to my daughter like every week, and I would show like my bump pictures and stuff like that. And so, like, after everything happened, I was like, I'm never going to blog again. I'm not doing anything anymore. But it was the only thing that allowed me to, it was like going to the mountaintop and screaming.
Yeah.
you know? And then through doing that, that is how I was able to meet so many other women who, through me just sharing my story, like, I mean, the first time I was just like, please pray for me. Literally, it was like one post one day. And, you know, then I was able to come back a few days later and share like a snippet of what happened, not the whole thing, because I was a mess. But then it was like, you know, people would email me, oh my gosh, I just lost a baby too. Or my cousin just lost a baby too. And then, so it would keep me, you know, I would still keep going. And then that is how all these people came into my life that have been able to help me. And now I have this sisterhood of baby lost moms.
Yeah.
Where we're able to support each other because I did share it online. And, you know, that's not for everyone, but, you know, in the event that you do decide to do that, it is very therapeutic, and it can bring other people into your life that can help you in, you know, some way or another, you know. Yeah.
And also, I've been trying to venture in now into like yoga and finding better ways, because I have anxiety, and there are times I get into my little depression. I'm just trying to find more natural causes and things to help me better with my mind and body and spirit.
Do you have a diffuser so you can put
I do. I have a diffuser. I have my rock salt lamp.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask you. That was my next question. Do you have a Himalayan salt lamp?
I do.
Yes, I love. Do you feel a difference with it?
There are times that like I've been having it on the past few, like I've had it for months. Like when Aiden passed is when I bought it. And I feel like if you use it every day, you'll see a difference. Like there are times, like now for the past week, I had it on every day, and I'm like falling asleep faster.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I'll turn it on today, and then I won't turn it on till like a week later. And because I have a hard time sleeping, because that's the time when I think about
everything. Yes, I know.
Yeah. So I have that. I started now. It's so funny because like another thing that I want to get into is just like planting and gardening, and just
very
like little,
therapeutic.
Like, yeah, and it's like, okay, this little plant is for Aiden. Like he has his own little plant. So like I literally, my counter right now has a whole bunch of soil and succulents and planters. So I'm just finding like little, I want to get into also like oils and things like that. But I was like, you know, one thing at a time. Like I don't want to, like my husband's very like, oh, you're trying to find so many things to like help you, and it's like you just need to stick to one thing. And it's like, and I feel like that's my problem. It's like I just want to find
something to fix it,
something to help me fix this pain. But again, nothing's, you know, yoga or blogging. It's not going to fix the pain. It's just to ease the pain. So I'm just trying to find little ways to help me.
Well, I will say with the lamp, and this is what the lady told me. She told me to never turn it off. So mine has been on. I've only had it for maybe like a week or two, because I knew that I was starting this project, and I knew that, you know, it is a heavy subject matter, and because I knew I was going to be, you know, talking to everyone, and then, you know, it may also trigger some feelings with me. I was like, you know what, I need to also do some self-preservation as well. So I got the lamp, and I literally, I don't turn it off or anything, just like the lady told me. And I've been doing really well. I've been feeling like really
That's a good one. I always shut it off like in the morning, like when I wake up. So I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll leave it on and see if there's a difference.
Keep it on and see if that, you know, because that's something, it's not like something you have to put energy into it, you know. Just leave it and, you know, keep it pushing. But tell me about your husband. Like, what does his grieving process look like? Because men and women grieve so differently, but, you know, he's still a dad. This is still his son. What is his grieving process like?
He's very reserved type of person. So if anyone knows him, oh yeah, that's Brian. He's quiet, and like he's a quiet one, and I'm like the crazy loud one. But with this process, it's hard to say how he feels, because he's not one to talk about his feelings. However, when I'm he senses when I'm having a bad day. He knows, and he's like, you had a bad day today. I'm like, yeah. He was like, it's okay, baby, I love you. It's okay. And he'll give me a hug and a kiss and, things like that. But I know he hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not normal for guys to just go ahead and blab it out there how they're feeling. And there are times that we do talk about how we feel, and it gets emotional, and that's what's tying us together. But I know he hurts. It's a matter of fact of how he has more escape outlets than me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has the dogs, and he is a workaholic. So, like,
have you gone back to work since?
I have, yeah.
And what was that transition like for you? Because that was tough for me.
It was hard. Like, I don't know. I really didn't tell a lot of people at work. Like, when I was told, hey, you're getting admitted by the doctor, I immediately called one of the managers, and I told her, like, I'm boohoo crying on the phone, and she's like crying with me. So I just told her, and I was like, is there any way you could just tell the general manager, because the less people that know, the better. But just FYI, I'm not going to be able to come to work for a few more weeks. But just going back to work, like, my husband will tell you, like, I was so hesitant. I was like, do I really need to go back to work? Like,
how long were you out? Did you stay out for 6 months?
I was out for the regular maternity leave, which was 3 months, but I decided to take an extra month off because I just wasn't ready.
Right, yeah.
I took 4 months off from work, and it was right around the time during the holidays. So I was like, you know what, let me just go back to work because I know we'll be busy. I work in retail. I was like, we'll be busy, and my mind would just, I'm going to be dealing with, upset customers and, dealing with, wrap this up for me. So I was like, you know what, perfect time for me to go back to work. But it was hard because when people do their holiday shopping, they're going out with their children. They just had babies. So it was one of those where I was like, oh man, there's a newborn baby, like a mom or a dad playing with his son. It was hard. Like, there are plenty of times I ran to the back and I cried.
Mm-hmm.
But especially during the holidays was so hard for me because my due date was December 6th. Yeah, and our anniversary is December 7th, and then Christmas and Thanksgiving, and it was just hard. Like, this holiday season was the worst time of my life. But just going back to work was, I tried to stay positive, and, no one really talked about it, which was good, because I was already thinking, like, as soon as I walked into the doors, I was going to be bombarded with questions, and why are you here? Why are you working? But no one asked, and I like that. I like the fact that I knew that they knew. Yeah. But it wasn't like, oh my God, like, should I ask her? Should I say I'm sorry? Like, I never got none of that.
Well, it's funny you say that because some of the other ladies that I've talked to, we've been talking about how sometimes people try to comfort you, but they end up saying the wrong things.
Yeah.
Or things that are hurtful, and they don't realize that it's hurtful because they're fortunate enough to not have experienced what we've experienced. Have you come across any situations like that where you've maybe had to, like...
I can tell that they wanted to say something and they just didn't know how. So they were like, oh, so it's just, is it just you and your husband right now? Mm-hmm. Like, trying to imply, like, do you guys have kids or anything like that? I'm like, it's just my husband and I, and I, like, walked away. Mm-hmm. But after I said something like that, like, my heart sunk because I felt like I didn't acknowledge Aiden. And a part of me is still trying to figure out, like,
what to do with that.
Yeah, what to do. Like, I want to acknowledge him, and I want to say, yes, we have a son. Mm-hmm. He's just not physically here. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to get those comments after, like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not sorry because he still made me a mom, and I need to remember that he still made me a mother.
I really struggled with that as well, and I started developing anxiety after everything happened, and I was so scared of meeting new people because I was like, people, like, they meet you and your husband, and then the next question is, oh, do you guys have kids?
Yeah.
And so I was very scared of talking to people. I was scared of going outside. And I asked my therapist, I'm like, what do I say if someone asks me if I have a child? And she just told me, you know what, just take it day by day. It depends on how you feel that day. If you are feeling really strong that day, you can say, yes, you know, we have a daughter, but she's in heaven, or however. She gave us the option how we wanted to express that, whether we wanted to say we have an angel, or, you know, she passed away, whatever the case is, because in case the questions or comments do come on that day, I would feel good enough to answer. But she's
Yeah.
like, if you know that you're waking up and this day is a challenge for you, it's okay to say, I don't have children, but know in your heart that you are not disowning or separating yourself from your daughter. Because just like you just said that you felt like you didn't acknowledge Aiden, I was like, I have to acknowledge her. Like, how can I say I don't have a daughter? But
Right.
she said it's okay to not acknowledge it to the outside world because these are strangers anyway, right?
They're not going to see you the next day, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's what I was like. This person's not going to see me tomorrow.
So as long as in your heart, which you do as a mother, you acknowledge your child every day, you know, whether they're physically here or not, you know. So that would be my advice to you, you know, just take it day by day. I have totally said, you know, before I had 2 more living children, I would say, you know, we have a daughter that passed away. And they would just move on because it would just shock them so much. Like,
right.
you know, they would just.
And then I know my therapist told me, she was like, you know, what does it matter, like, what someone else, how they feel, that you made them uncomfortable. It doesn't matter. Like, you need to take care of yourself. And if you, by saying, yes, you have children and he passed away and the other person is uncomfortable for that 1 second, you're not going to see them again. I was like, you know what? She's like, you need to take care of yourself. You need to do what's right for you at that time frame, at that state of mind. And that's what I've been doing. Thankfully, I haven't had anyone that actually came up to us and said, oh, so how many children you have? Because I know in a heartbeat, I'm going to, yeah, we have 1 son, but, you know, it passed away type of deal. But it hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I have had, like, I didn't think this was going to happen as fast as I thought it would. And it's so funny that it happened to my husband like a few days before it happened to me. He just never told me. But it was that we were both at work and we heard someone say, Aiden, stop that. So, like, he was at work and a mom was telling her son Aiden to, like, don't pick up the candy. And he turned around like, oh my gosh. And then I did the same thing. Like, a few days later, mom was like, Aiden, leave it alone. And I turned around and, like, my heart stopped. I was like, oh my God, Aiden's here. And it's like, Christine, be real. He's not here. So that day I was so bummed. And I told my husband, I was like, you know, I heard a mom say Aiden. He was like, you're shitting me, right? Like, I heard someone say Aiden too, like 3 days ago. I was like, you know, that's a sign. Like, that's a sign that Aiden's with us. You know, so I take any little thing and it's like, that's my pumpkin letting me know that it's going to be okay, you know?
Yeah. And they do let you know that they're still around.
Yeah.
In their own subtle little ways.
Yeah, it could be any little thing that's like, I know that's him. Like, I was driving down I-4 and, you know, that's just like straight highway.
Yeah.
And I saw a dandelion just like fly right by. And I was like, oh my God, that's him. And it's like, you don't see a dandelion, especially on a highway like that. So I was like, oh my gosh, like that's, and I was having a bad day and I just kept talking, like, you know, I'm having one of those days, I just talked to him. I'm like, oh my gosh, Aiden, like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, why aren't you here? Like, you know, just venting. And then, like, just either a few days later, I see a little sign and it's him letting me know that, like, it's going to be okay.
And you did talk about the fact that you have a lot of support, which is great. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I have a great support system. My parents, my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, I would feel like we've gotten a little bit closer. Not that we weren't close or anything, but she lost a son, which is my husband's twin. So it's another thing that I feel like connected us when it came to that type of losing a child. You know, my mom hasn't lost a child. So it's one of those, it's hard to talk to. Like, again, I talk to my parents, I talk to my mom, I let her know how I feel, and she's giving me the motherly, comforting advice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try to talk to my best friend or my close friends, but again, it's one of those where it's like, I have a hard time letting them know how I feel because they don't have their child sitting up on a TV stand on an urn. You know, as soon as we're done hanging up the phone, they're tucking in their kids at night or feeding them dinner and giving them a bubble bath. So it's like, it's probably my fault too. Like, I step away from that when it comes to talking about Aiden, even though it's probably, you know, they're also hurting too, but it's like, I don't want to talk to people because they don't know how I feel. Like, you don't know the things that goes on in my mind and my heart. So like, why should you help me if it's not bringing him back, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there are just certain things I don't talk to anyone about. Like, you know, if I'm having a bad day, the only person I will honestly text or give a phone call to is the girl that I met in the support group.
I really don't want to shut down, even though
No.
I know you want to. Like, I remember I just wanted to so bad. I'm like, if I just don't talk to anyone, because I didn't go to support groups or anything. I just, only thing I would do is blog and go to the therapist, only because my family made me, because they were like looking at me and they're like, you're not you know.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to see that at the time, but I'm really happy they made me go. But yeah, just, you know,
Yeah,
support groups, therapy, you know, and it is hard because people do really want to support you, and but then it's like,
how can they be, you know? Like, I've had people text me just like, oh, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying about you and Aiden. And yes, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that. 100%. But at a point, I was like, why pray? Like, why pray for him? He's not coming back. Why pray for me? I'm just gonna go ahead and jump off this balcony. Like, why pray? But that's, again, I had to think differently and be like, you know what? I'm thankful that these people are praying for us.
right.
They know that I'm dealing with such a pain inside. Yes, they might not know what that pain is, but they know that I'm still hurting.
Yeah, and their pain is seeing you in pain because they love you so much, you know.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to understand and allow people to allow people in. Like, you know, my friends, they didn't know what I was going through, but I was like, you know what, hanging out with them or spending time with them for those few hours, I really, is my one time to not really think about it. You know, so although sometimes I felt like it was pointless because, like you said, there's nothing, you feel like in that depression, you feel like there's nothing you can do that's going to bring this baby back, because all you want in the world is for this baby to come back. But, you know, that's where like the acceptance comes in, and that takes a while. But just for speaking for myself, once I started to understand and accept that, I'm like, you know what, I can't keep making excuses when my friends are like, hey, can we take you to the spa? Hey, can we, you know, I lived in New York at the time, and for the summer they wanted to go to Jersey Shore for the day. And I wanted to be like, you know, you're from Jersey, so yeah, Jersey Shore is like a big thing. And the show was like really popping at the time too. So they were like, oh my God, we can go look and see the film, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, in my depression, I'm like, this is so stupid. I don't watch Jersey Shore. I don't care about the beach. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to eat. I don't want to laugh. I don't want to have fun. But when I went, it was such a release, because for those few hours, I was Janelle again. I wasn't this depressed, you know, shell of myself, you know. So it is important, although, you know, I do know that sometimes we want to shut down, like, you know, even if it's for 2 hours, to just be you again, in your new normal, because now you're in a new normal. You know, that's super important, because you are going to have to learn as time goes on how to jump back into society basically and start to enjoy yourself again. I remember the first time I laughed after my daughter passed. I laughed and then it ended in like the most hysterical crying fest.
Oh my God, that happened to me too.
Yeah, because I felt so guilty
Yeah.
for laughing and being happy.
Yeah.
And you know, and see that's the thing about like having people who understand, because I can't, no one else gets that when I say it, you know what I mean? And so that's where it's important to have like your baby loss friends for those moments. And then it's important to still have like people from, I call it life before, who you can still hang on to a part of yourself who is just Christine, who is bubbly and fun and makes people laugh. You know what I mean? You definitely don't want to lose that person.
Right.
So, you know, I know it's hard though, because sometimes it's just like, no one gets me.
Yeah, like you just want to scream, like, I want you to understand, like, what I'm going through. But then I think back, like, I don't want them to lose their children.
Yeah.
I don't want them to know that pain. So I go back into like my little bubble, and I just reach out to, you know, the support group friends. And that's when I start reading the Bible. And it's like, I need to do something, because I already lost like my confidence and things like that. And I'm just trying to rebuild it back up to the old Christina. I'm not ever going to be the old Christina.
No,
it's new Christine, but it's like, and I'm just trying to like rediscover that again, because, you know, you're planning to be a new mom and a new wife and all these things. And it's like, okay, so all of that, it's gone. So now what? So now it's like, okay, I just need to rediscover who I am and kind of figure out this new path that I guess is destined for me now.
Yeah, I understand that too. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Because you get so, like you said, so wrapped up in, you know, the baby's coming at this time and I need to do this, this, and this, and this. And then for the holidays, we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like when those things don't happen, you kind of just don't know what to do with your hands. It's just like, what, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one of those where I'm like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And it's like, I will ask my husband all the time, like, I don't know myself anymore. I don't know anything. Like, who am I? And it's like, okay, I just need to take, and my mantra was one day at a time. You need to take one day at a time. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about 2 weeks from now, because you're a planner. That's just what happens. That's how you are. I just needed to like just take one day at a time, one breath at a time, and like that helps me. It's like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. And I just had to keep telling myself, it's gonna be okay. God knew what He was doing. God needed him more than you. And I just kept replaying that in my head, like, Aiden's gonna teach you more in life than you could have taught him while he was here. You know, so it's one of those. It's a everyday challenge. I'm not saying it's easy and like, oh, okay, I'm done with my 5 stages of grief.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that at all. So it's just every day, just taking one day at a time and just seeing, you know, where this takes me. Like, I love what you're doing, and I've had people come up to me, like, you know, when I didn't tell anyone what happened with Aiden being born or his passing until I posted something on Facebook the day of his funeral service, which is like 2 weeks after everything happened. And I've gotten so many messages and text messages and DMs like, oh my gosh, like, I had no idea, like, this happened to me. I've had miscarriages. I lost my son, or I lost my daughter. And it's like, it's such a different world out there.
Yep. And you don't know this world exists until it happens to you, and then people start opening up, and then, yeah.
You're like, where, you know, so it's one of those where, like, I don't want to say I'm thankful for this road because no one ever should be in this, you know, no one should ever be going down this path. But I am thankful for who Aiden has made me become and who he is going to let me be. there's a lot more. Like, yeah, I wish we were celebrating his 6 months or a year, but maybe what he's teaching me is how I need to rediscover myself. So there's a lot of things that I'm learning when it comes to being an angel mom or being a mom of a micro-preemie. It's a lot of self-love, a lot of going back into my faith, and then just rediscovering the foundation that my husband and I have. Because if it wasn't for my husband, Aiden wouldn't be here, and vice versa, Yeah. But yeah, don't get me wrong. There are times that I wish that like my house was filled with toys all over the floor and I had throw up on my clothes and but that doesn't surpass the fact that I know in my heart that Aiden still made me a mom. I will have a daily reminder of him for the rest of my life. I have a C-section. So it's, I look down, it's like, there he is. Like, I am still a mom in the end of the day. And that's
absolutely. And never, ever let go of that.
Right.
Never let go of that. You are still a mom. And I shared this on a previous episode, but the unique part about losing your first child in that way is that sometimes your mind does play tricks on you, and it's like, am I a mom? Am I not a mom? Like, you're in this weird limbo, but you are a mom, and no one can take that away from you.
Yeah, and I think that's what I struggle with before, and I still struggle now. It's like, I don't have anything to state that I am a mom, with the exception of a C-section scar and, jewelry or little reminders that I have a son, Yeah, I'm not pushing a stroller the way I plan on, but I still have to remember that I'm a mom.
You're a mom. And I think it just looks a lot different than the way that you planned, but you're still a mom. And it is a hard thing to accept.
Yeah.
You still are. And, in time, he'll let you know why, because that why, what I've learned is, although I wasn't able to get a why from the doctors, I was able to get a why from God. And I, like you mentioned before, like, I believed in God and I was, whatever, but I wasn't as deep in my faith until this happened.
Yeah.
And after everything transpired, like, that's when I really had to lean into my faith, because that's all I had. And it's funny because this past Christmas, which was just a few weeks ago, because we talk about Jolie all the time, and my mom was like, she just randomly said that, do you know Jolie made you a much better person? And I was like, what do you mean by that? And like, she didn't mean it in like a shady way. Like, and I was like, what do you mean by that? And she was like, do you remember before you had her, you were very scattered? And I was like, you're right. Because I was a makeup artist, a photographer, a cupcake like, I was like doing all these things to find myself. But then after I had her, I really did kind of center myself, and I found my purpose that I was so desperately looking for before I had her. And I now know that my calling is to help other women like us, and I would not be able to do that if I did not experience what I experienced.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I know my calling is not going to happen, boom, one day. It might, you never know. But it's like, this is a different road that I'm taking, and who knows, like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing, is helping out others along the way.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten so much support on my behalf. I was like, I know I was telling my husband, like, I just want to help other women, other moms, other parents who are going through this, not necessarily after, but like, I was talking to him more like when they're actually in the hospital, having that go-to person. Because if I didn't have my mother-in-law or my mom, I would have been like, I don't know what to do. So it's one of those where it's like, maybe this is where I'm supposed to be, just not right now. Maybe I have to wait until I'm a little bit more along my healing process.
Yeah. Another woman I spoke to, like, almost immediately she created like a foundation and all that stuff. Whereas me, I'm just really getting here and I'm almost 6 years into, you know what I mean? So, you know, grieving, it looks different for everyone. Everyone's healing process is different. You know, years ago, I wanted to start a nonprofit, but emotionally, I was not there to put that together and be a vessel to other women because I was still trying to put myself back together. So, you know, for you, like, definitely don't rush that process. Whatever it is that you're supposed to do because of all this, it reveals itself over time. Yeah, in its due time when you're ready for it.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I'm learning now is that it's not in my timing anymore. It's in God's time, because he has my life already laid out in front of him. It's just now I just need to understand and take my time when it comes to certain things in life. Like, yeah, we have planned on having Aiden, but it wasn't our plans to have him in the weird life that we, you know, that's supposed to happen. Like, it just didn't happen that way because God didn't have it written like that. He had it written where he needed him more than me. So it's one of those where it's like, okay, I need to step back and one day at a time and see what fits me.
Yeah, this is definitely something that causes you to reflect a lot. It causes you to do a lot of inner work because that's the only way that you can get through this. And, you know, leaning in on your faith and all that is super important. And yeah, just learning how to function within this new normal, you know, whatever that means. That looks different for everyone, you know? And so I really do appreciate you sharing your story. Like I mentioned earlier, I know this is very fresh. This is, you know, super fresh for you. So
well, thank you.
I can't thank you, and I don't even have the words because, you know, 5 months into my healing, I don't know if I could have done this, you know. So I really do appreciate you being so vulnerable and being so honest and talking about Aiden and just sharing his life with us because there's this I think it's from Horton Hears a Who, that Disney movie, and it says a person's a person no matter how small. And I just love that. Yeah, I love that quote because it makes me think of my little girl. Like, she was so tiny, but so
left a big impact.
So big. And her, you know, her presence is so huge and it's still here. And because of her, I'm able to, you know, to do what I'm doing now. And now that I have gone on to have, you know, other living children, having her and having that experience, I'm sure has made me a different mom than what I would have been if I didn't experience that, you know?
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm somewhat looking forward to in the future. Like, we talked a little bit here and there about, you know, what would be our next steps when it comes to children. Would it be adopting? Because we've always wanted to have our own and then adopt. And now that we've had our own, do we adopt? But it's another part of me where it's like, as of right now in this instant, like, I don't want to give my love, as selfish as it may sound, I don't want to give my love to someone else's baby. Like, I want to give it.
It's not selfish. You're grieving. Yeah. You're grieving. Don't ever feel bad about that.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's just one of those, like, I just want a baby who has our own personality, has our traits. You know, it's hard to know what Aiden would have looked like, even though I kind of think he looked like me. But it's, you know, like, I want to know what our little creation would soon turn out to be. And it's hard to think about that when it comes to adopting. But it is on one of our things to do because we've always had that within us ever since I was a little girl, since he was a little boy, that we wanted to adopt.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, it's in our back burner. So right now it's just one of those, like, we just need to figure out and see like what are we planning on doing.
Yeah, and I think emotionally over time through your grieving process and just as you heal, like all the answers to the questions you have, they slowly
Becoming
again, not on our time, unfortunately, but you know, over time, like we really do get answers to every single question that we have, even if we don't get it in the way that we wanted to get it, you know.
Yes.
But everything reveals itself over time. It's crazy how life works that way.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have faith that, you know, I mean, I know you're going to be fine. I know you're going to be fine.
I'm going to be fine. And, you know, as long as I have my husband, I have a good support system, and I have my faith, I don't know, possibilities are endless now, you know, like everything just comes down to the fact that I'm still a mom, and that's all that matters.
Yep.
But yeah, things will work out, and it's in our favor. I kept hearing over and over, you know, like, yeah, this might be a little setback, but God has bigger plans for you guys. You guys are going to get double the blessings. However that means, I don't know. But it's just, you know, it's nice to know that I know God is looking out for us.
Yeah, this
and
is just...
He chose us to be Aiden's parents. He could have chosen everything else.
Mm-hmm.
He chose us.
Yeah.
So, our blessing will come again.
Yeah, and this is just part of your story. It's not the ending of your story.
Yeah.
It's just part of it, you know? So just definitely keep the faith, keep your support group, and, you know, you can always reach out to me. You know, I'm always on social media, so whatever time you hit me up, I'll be available. So, again, just thank you so much for being a part of this and helping me to share your story and helping me to put faces to loss, so that for other women like us who may go through loss in whatever capacity, we don't feel so alone, because that is such a big part of it, is just feeling like, you know, no one understands, or you're the only one going through this, when unfortunately, you know, that's not the case. But I mean, I wish things were different, but unfortunately, you know, there's just some of us that are part of this club, and I do want us to know each other and have, you know, faces to these stories, and not just reading about them and you know, hearing from, you know, 6 degrees of separation. Oh, I know a girl who knows a girl who knows a girl who did this. You know, it's like, you know, women like us are in everyone's everyday lives, but you just may not know it because there is such a stigma and so much shame that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want us to speak out more, so that it's not awkward, so that people don't have to try to avoid us, you know, or try to minimize our grief to make themselves feel more comfortable, because that happens too. So again, thank you for sharing your story and sharing Aiden's story with us, and you know, just stay in touch and keep us updated on, you know, what's going on with you. And I know this is, you know, the beginning of, you know, who knows, you know, what it is that God has planned, but I can say that for every baby lost mom I know, for all of those who did not give up, the blessings have
come rolling in.
Yeah, have come rolling in.
Yeah.
And, you know, life may look a little bit different than what we planned, but, you know, as long as you keep that faith, I'm telling you.
Yes.
You know
I mean, that's all I have.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to hold on to. And, you know, if you would ask me now if I would change anything, I would not change anything, because if I did, then that means Aiden wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I don't like the path that I'm going down, but I would not change it for anything in the world. I wouldn't change it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, my pumpkin. For letting me talk about him and sharing our story. I look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Okay, and thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who is listening or watching. If you'd like to share your story as well, I will be leaving my information so that you guys can get in contact with me. And this is just all about us coming out of hiding and, talking about this and letting people know that our kids exist. We don't have to be ashamed of our stories, and we don't have to hide that we're angel moms, because there's so many women who are suffering in silence. So I hope that you all may have learned something from Christine today. We never know who may be in the same exact shoes as you right now. They may be able to reach out to you and you guys can talk. You never know. So just thank you so much for listening today, you guys. And yeah, baby loss talk. We're here, we exist, and our children and our babies, their lives matter, no matter how short they were. They're impactful, and we're gonna keep speaking their names. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening.